Okay.
Welcome
Michelle.
to the New York
Okay.
State Association of School Business Officials webinar. Today's program is the Strategic Planning of Technology Part A. Your host for today is Donna Clement, Director of Professional Development. Operator assistance is available at any time during this conference by pressing #. Following the presentation, you'll be invited to a live question and answer session. You may send chat messages at any time during this presentation using the chat window indicated by a speech bubble icon located to the right of the presentation. Please address chat questions to the Q&A group using the drop-down list located at the bottom of the chat window. I will now turn the call over to our host, Donna. Please begin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for Strategic Planning for Technology, the second of our online courses through the New York State School Business Management Institute. And Larry King from Cleveland Hill has graciously taken on the job of instructing this course. And Larry, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi. Yes. Welcome, everybody. My name is Larry King, Cleveland Hill School District Director of Technology. I have been in instructional technology for 21 years. Prior to that, I was in industry. In that, I've been a district representative, and I've also worked on the side of a regional information center. So I have that background, as well as working for a local BOCES and understanding that in-between part as far as from the business perspective of understanding how the funds are sent from district to local BOCES to RIC and equipment is purchased and those types of things. So as we talk about strategic planning for technology, know that I have been doing it, the planning part, for at least 18 years, back when instructional technology was first introduced to the classrooms. I'll give you some background on how all that has come. Back in the 80s, the 1980s, technology was primarily used connected to networks and mainframes in the offices. And the planning pretty much stayed in the school district, where the district would purchase Apple IIe's or Commodores or those types of computers, and they were standalone and for classroom, and it was used local funding, and there were minimal sources to go out and get extra money. In the early 90s, as local area networks and student management systems became more prevalent, then there was a means by which school districts could actually go through the BOCES, or the regional computer centers, or the regional information centers, to actually purchase hardware under a COSER and receive their BOCES aid on these purchases. At that time, they were usually limited to a classroom and running, I'll get a little bit technical, something like ArcNet, and then the means still had to be to tie that to a COSER and usually try to tie that back somehow to the internet, to the mainframe, to email, something along that lines. Now we are in the early 21st century, but the late 2009, the first decade of the century. And I'm assuming that all classrooms are connected, and most computers, at least in New York State, are probably purchased through a BOCES COSER, be it an administrative side or an instructional side. And there are multiple COSERs that you can fit those under, be they library, a model schools, or common set of learning objectives, or on the management side, you may be doing it with one of your student management systems or the business application that you're using. There are multiple items that we'll address today. There'll be 5 primary items that we'll address today. Our long-range planning for technology, total cost of ownership, maintenance contracts, license management, and integration of multiple hardware and software systems. At session 2, we'll continue and discuss appropriate policies needed by districts, disaster recovery, community access to school technology systems, emerging technologies, and cost-benefit analysis and management for, well, instructional management networks and communication systems. From my perspective, being on the technology side, those are the things that fall under my cap. They continue to grow, and they continue to become more complex. If we look at item 1, long-range planning. What is a long range? As I say, I've got 21 years experience doing instructional technology. When we first started this, our technology plans were 5 to 7 years in length. So as we went out and said, how long am I ordering out till we could run it 5, 7 years? And I know at our Western New York Regional Information Center, we can do something through an IPA, which is a purchase agreement that we do through the RIC, so that we can spread the cost out over a number of years. Unfortunately, now with our long range now becoming more like 3 years, we have to look at our IPAs and how we actually purchase technology, how we plan technology, and how we reuse the technology that we have. And also under that long-range planning is we look at that, and our technology needs and updates always part of capital project plans. There's a lot of districts in our region currently involved in Excel capital projects, and I know most of my colleagues have events or portions of that capital project in which they are utilizing the Excel capital project to put in enhancements in their technology and in the district itself. One of the things in the long-range plan, too, that certainly impacts the technology and I think drives the technology are programs. As we look at the curriculum and the demands being put on our curricular leaders by the feds and by the state, and now saying that that they have mandates that they must follow, and there's certain levels of expectations that they must meet. As we talk about the assessments from 3 to 12 or pre-K to 16, we as technology directors and you as business managers understand the responsibilities and trying to keep up with those needs as the messages come down from the higher authorities to say you will now meet these needs, some of it being fed by the No Child Left Behind. The technology people, the tech coordinators, are then making sure that whatever software needs that will match the curricular needs, we need to make sure that they will all run and they will work. That's some stuff that we will address during the conference. Technology plans. District technology plans are how we technology leaders manage what we're doing, when, and how we're going to do it. The technology plans used to be 5 years. They are now 3-year plans. A lot of that has to do with what I mentioned earlier, in that things are changing more rapidly, requirements are changing every few months, and the time frame has lessened, and they are now also submitted to the Universal Service Fund for E-rate approval. E-rate, for those of you who don't know its origins, I'll give you a little history on that. Back when Ma Bell was the only thing it was prior to NINEX, they had been hit for overbilling or charging too much for home service. So through federal regulation, the agreement was that the money, the extra money that they had made, would be dispersed equally. And the arrangement was made that they would do that to schools and libraries. Um, it is not an easy process to step through as a technology person, as those of you in the business understand it too, that there are the forms which you must complete, and that time is coming up because it is October. But with us in the technology plans, being that the 3 years, our guidelines are driven by the Universal Service Fund. And in one of the assignments between now and next time we talk, I'm asking that you get a hold of one of your district's get a hold of your district's technology plan, and I would also like you to visit another school district and visit the website within New York State, please, and obtain that school district's technology plan. One of the requirements of maintaining a technology plan is that we post it to our website. Every school website is supposed to have a link to it. Now that is part of USAC, but is also part of our title requirements that we maintain that, and it's an easy to find document. The technology plan should be a living document. It is not static for sure, and every technology plan will be different based upon the makeup of the group, who's ever on your committee, the personalities and their own little areas of expertise. The regional information centers and the local BOCES, they provide training and support for those of us new to writing technology plans, and also they provide the support for us as the rules change and the regulations and the requirements that we must meet for that. The content of the technology plan can impact, as you can see, title funding. We must submit them for state approval. They must be accessible on district's website, and they also must align with any beds information, and that's an important one now because we are in the middle of beds and getting that report out. The technology plan must include anticipated expenditures for hardware, software, telecommunications cost for that life of the plan. Now, as business managers, I don't know that you always see that, and I hope that when you have these two technology plans from your home district and another New York State district, that you can indeed find where they have their long-range plan. And for those of you in your home districts, I'm hoping you're shaking your head saying, yes, of course I have that, and I know exactly what's in their technology plan and what they're asking for the next 3 years, and that's in the budget. I know that I have not been that good, although I have a very close relationship and a good friendship with the business manager. I can tell you that I can give them exactly what I need for this coming year, and I can give them a gray area, say, well, this is about what I'm anticipating. And that, again, goes back to what we submit in our 3-year plans is an anticipated. But in the past, I want to say 7 to 10 years, with the technology changing, the requirements changing, the requirements for the software changing, that has been hard to stay to. Sometimes we've been able to upgrade older machines, but we have tried to set a recycle and replacement schedule. Sometimes we're correct when we guesstimate how much that's going to be, but as you all know, things change over the years, and a lot of times it's a best shot. The E-rate checklist, that is an item that Donna will post for you, and that will be something that you will be able, hopefully, to download. If you have problems My contact information is, I'll give you a minute to write this down, LKING at clevehill.org. That's CLEVEHILL.org. If you have difficulty downloading, they should be in PDF format. The checklist, download it, print it out. If you have an advanced version of Adobe, you may actually be able to enter the check marks and et cetera within it. But I would like you to take that checklist and check those two technology plans and be able to fill that out. If you want to cheat in your home district, your technology director or technology coordinator has already filled out such a checklist and filled it out twice, once for E-rate and another for the title information, and so that'd be a quick way to get a copy. And that would actually help you understand where they're pulling information from, but when you do that, I request that you go and look at that page and see exactly what they're considering the item. And we'll review those next week when we talk again. Technology committees. One of the primary focuses now for that technology committee is addressing the plan. The USAC wants the technology plan, as I said, to be a living document. They want to, if they should walk in the middle of the 3-year plan and do an audit on your school district, they want to see that your technology plan has been modified since its original writing. And that's not hard for the technology committee to do if they are addressing the topics within the technology plan. But as they do it, it should also be uploaded to the website so that it shows those changes. I've been under the practice in the past to actually change the color of the font, which is very simple, and add changes or modifications at the end of the paragraphs of those sections where they have been changed to show that, so that it's an easy find at a time of an audit. Technology committees, going back 15 years ago, used to focus on how many computers do we want? Do we want them in the classrooms or do we want them in the labs? That has changed. The technology plans used to be simply, we need 5 computers per classroom and this is our plan to order them. They're now written in the sense of we are currently focusing on educational elementary school reading literacy, and the programs that we have earmarked to help us improve our scores and our grades are this, that, and the other. And in order to meet those, here are the requirements for the computers, and here's what our plan to upgrade or modify, or actually in the elementary school we may be in okay shape, so our primary focus will be on the middle high. That is the way technology plans are currently being written. And with the instructional goals, although not required as part of the technology plan should also include benchmarks. What happens is a lot of times we will install computers, printers, wireless connections, and really high-speed broadband to get access to stuff. But the benchmark should be there so that we know that when a child leaves 3rd grade, can they type? Can they type from the home row? When they leave 5th grade, can they type using their hands at home keys and without looking at the keyboards and at least 30 words per minute? Those are the types of things that should be in a technology plan, not required, but should be, and that's where the technology committees, the ones I have sat on most recently, those are our focus areas and our hit items, actually the expenditures and those types of things that we go and meet with the business officials and our superintendents about, those are an outgrowth of the focus. And again, the reiteration that we're expected to revise the plan every 3 years. And if the plan is being written every year or every meeting being rewritten, then hopefully when it comes to the time to write the new one, all you're doing is looking at the new regulations at that time and ensuring that you meet those. Inventory management. Um, this is a huge one. Only because every district, as you know, has its own personality. Inventory management. Who manages the inventory? I've been, as I said, in a district, BOCES, and a regional information center, and I will say that everywhere I've been, it's been handled differently. I can tell you that the inventories in 2 of the locations I have been at have been managed differently over a course of years. You may select a means by which to do it, a person responsible for that, personnel changes, ideas change, and all of a sudden we're doing inventory a different way and managing a different way. That's okay, but it also becomes very confusing. So as you look at your inventory now from the technology perspective, we worry about our computers and our printers and our network devices and those types of things. But do we keep them in the same inventory database in which our tractors, trucks, and pianos and those types of things are kept? Also, under who manages the inventory, we'll talk about software. Our software licenses and operating systems inventoried. Do you know, does your technology department have a replacement plan for the Microsoft Office suite or whatever Office application you use? That should be in there. That should be an expense anticipated. And most districts, although they may not share that information with you on a regular basis, we have means by which to go out and scan the network and look at each one of our computer devices and know what the operating system is, what the BIOS or basic input-output system is on that, and that is also sometimes referred to as firmware. We know what level that is, and we will also know most of the time what software is installed and what level it's at. And we now have, because of wide area networks and more sophisticated hardware and software, we can actually do something called pushing out updates. Is there a district plan for replacement and recycling? And again, this goes back to, everything. Is it just computers we're talking about, or is it everything? Do you keep them all in the same place? If an auditor walked in and said, okay, find this digital camera for me, are you looking through multiple databases? Are you going just to the technology database, or are you going to the central inventory database? Actually, my preference would be having a central inventory database in which you have asset tags, so that some of the asset tags, the ones I prefer, are the ones that actually are barcoded. Not that we have the capability currently of going out and swiping them with a wand, but at least it is there for future, so that when the technology catches up, I can walk out with my BlackBerry and I can have a scanning device on it. I can scan the barcode and automatically either put it into the inventory or find out if it's actually where it's supposed to be. One of the items that we frequently reach in computers is, again, it always all goes back to communication, but we will find that with inventory sometimes a classroom may move, a teacher may move, and the computer will move with them, and it's not recorded in the inventory. So when an auditor walks in and says, where is this scanner? And we go to the room where we thought it was, it's not there, and then we all have to go back and jog our memories and go like, okay, who was in this room 3 years ago, and where could it be now? I can tell you I had an incident where an item was missing once for an audit, and thank goodness we had been there long enough in the district because it actually had been assigned to someone who was retired. So when the auditor came up and said, show me where this person's computer is, we all went, who took her place, and from that, where did they move to? Because actually the office she was in, it also moved. And luckily we were able to find it. Now that wasn't because we had a good inventory, it's because we had a good memory. So with the replacement and recycling, my recommendation has always been, and everybody has their own plan, but mine has always been for computers. If it's in an office area, it should be 3 years. Those computers are used between 7.5 to 12 hours a day, and they're always on, and they're critical for the district. If I'm in an instructional setting, I recommend for the teachers' workstations 5 years. And actually for the students, it's nice to throw 5 years out there, but we have computers in our classrooms that are 11 years old and still working and still getting us into the applications that we need. Obviously, they're mostly in the primary and the intermediate level, but with most software now being web-based, it's just important that you have an updated operating system and enough RAM, and you hope that the hardware lasts long enough. And actually, there is, if they die, they're gone. We did briefly discuss the software licenses and operating systems and how they're inventoried. They can be inventoried. It probably be a good thing to check with your the technology people and find out if they actually do inventory the software licenses and how they do it, what's the means by which they do that. TCO, as you can see in this slide, the easily measurable. That's real simple. How much did it cost me to buy it? How much is it going to cost me next year to keep it running? These are under the contractual, although those change. They're pretty easy to predict if based on the percentage that we anticipate for our own salaries based on contractual. That's pretty simple. The renewable licenses and software contracts, those as well usually follow the a simple percentage increase of 3-4% per year. The BOCES RIC services, as you know, those changed based on your sometimes your RWADA, your free and reduced, how much BOCES aid is being sent down from the state, and the telecommunications fees. Right now, that for me has been absolutely the most difficult to pin down and predict. So, though I say easily measurable, the predictability on the telecommunications actually will probably fall more into the next slide, which is the difficult, the actual difficult to predict. And the consumables I have, and right on the top of the list is paper. Technology and computers were supposed to lessen the amount of paper that we use. I'm not seeing that. Every classroom in our district has a laser printer. Our faculty rooms have laser printers. Our high-speed network printers have, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 that teachers and staff can print to and actually save things in the queue. And with what's occurred very recently with the advent of no more textbooks or worksheets provided on a CD/DVD versus purchasing a workbook, the initial purchase is very exciting in the sense that, wow, look, I'm saving money. I'm not having to buy workbooks. On the other side of the fence, we're buying a lot more paper. In my district this past year, we are doing 150% um, output from our duplication center than we had the previous year. We have been forced in September to do 2 emergency orders of 8.5 by 11 white copy paper because we ran out of paper. This has happened twice in 6 weeks. As I said, we're 150% beyond. Was not anticipated, was not expected, and that goes back to the communication piece, which we'll talk about in the next session. But in communication, something changed in the way the teachers and the principals and the curriculum leaders were ordering their textbooks, their workbooks, etc. The information did not get back to me, and hence we're caught in this consumables difficult to predict. We'll be spending a lot more money on paper that was not budgeted for. And with that, if I'm printing more in-house, then I'm also using more toner. Toner pretty much stays standard as far as the cost. As total cost of ownership, my preference, and I use my years of experience to say, is I really prefer to get the OEM version. If it's a Lexmark printer and they recommend Lexmark toner, then that's what I'm getting. If it's a Hewlett-Packard printer and it recommends a Hewlett-Packard toner, that is what I'm getting. Only because I have been burned a couple times in purchasing the remanufactured or the third party, and then we get leakage of the toner into the printer, which starts with jams, and then you're replacing things like fusers, which are more expensive, and you're running cleaner sheets more frequently. And so when you look at the TCO, yeah, I may have saved money on the toner, but what I've done is I've just increased the amount of other consumables, other pieces and parts and repair costs, and also taking the time of human resources and technology staff. The difficult to predict, here we go again, is the click charges as we talk about the high-speed network printers. With those, there are click charges under the contract, and so if I'm up 50% beyond what I did last year, well, then all of a sudden I've just increased the amount that I'm spending. This is it was unpredictable, and it's occurring. And then of course your repair and maintenance. Although you build monies in for repairs, anticipating, you just can always get caught off guard with the repair and maintenance costs. And then the hardware failure, of course. No one likes to think that they're going to have hardware fail, but it does happen. And although precautions are taken to recover the data, there's still the cost of doing that sometimes and replacing the hardware. And of course, there's always the loss of productivity and over time. I'll point to a specific instance that occurred to me on our email server a number of years ago. There was actually a hack that was out there. It wasn't spyware. It was actually an opening in the back of a specific manufacturer's network card, and actually it was a RAID controller that there was an issue with. And in that, we lost all the hard drives overnight on this one server, and of course it was our email server. And although it was RAIDed, and for those of you who understand some technology, a RAID, R-A-I-D, allows you to span your data across multiple hard drives with the anticipation that, if a hard drive goes bad, it's not a big deal. I just pull out that hard drive and I throw another hard drive in. They all will sync back up, and that information again will be shared across all the hard drives. Unfortunately, because of this hack, I lost all my hard drives, and so to recover that was lost productivity and overtime, especially if you're talking about email, because then I had to find numerous high-speed SCSI hard drives, get them installed, and then do the restore of the entire file server. And that was time, and that was, difficult to predict for sure. Under the maintenance contracts, who manages the contract for hardware and software? I know that in my district, these two bullets that we have are split. Telephones and associated equipment and the public address and auto attendant are actually managed by our maintenance and grounds personnel. We are not IP telephones. We are a standard digital setup in that we have, the digital phones and the analog phones. It comes through an automated attendant. The automated attendant portion is mine. The other is maintenance and grounds. So they are responsible for that contract. Now, that being said, those costs, as we look at the long-range plan for technology, those are not in my technology plan. I do handle the other phone issues, but I do not handle the telephone and associated equipment, although we talk about it and we maintain parts of it. That part, as far as the maintenance contract and stuff, does not fall under technology, and so is not in my budget. And I know every district does that differently, and it all depends again on the personnel and the history. Then under there, you've got the computers and peripherals. That's pretty straightforward. The only thing I do recommend is that, and I know that the technology people all have the additional file server maintenance. When you have a file server, ensure that your contract for those require the 4-hour on-site for repairs, because, as you know, productivity is lost if a file server goes down. Continuing with who manages the contract for hardware and software, there's the AV equipment. Now, the public address system was on the previous slide because the public address systems now, the majority of them, are tied in with the phone system, so that if I'm on a telephone, I can simply key in a number and I can do an all-call within the school building or within multiple buildings. I've never seen it where you can do it across an entire district, and if somebody's doing that, then shoot me a note and tell me how it's done. But with that, the public address system, that kind of falls under AV as well, at least in our district. And one of the pieces under there is the auditorium sound and lighting. And from my perspective, that falls under our AV department. Now, the AV department may fall under technology. The AV department may stand on its own. But it is also separate from separate yet similar, that it does not fall under the technology plan. It does not always fall under the technology director's responsibilities, but it is certainly a maintenance contract in the way that the sound and lighting is now managed. They majority have a computer built inside. If you have one that is within the past few years, even if you have one that is 10 years old, like a lighting console or a sound console in your auditorium, that is going to at least have a floppy disk drive. And what your lighting and sound people are doing, most of them being students, they're actually sitting at a computer, programming their lighting scheme or their sound scheme, aligning those with the cues that will be called by the director, and then taking that diskette or CD, or actually, now, like I said, with the newer ones, you do them right on the console themselves, and programming those. So who manages the contract for that? Networking equipment. I know that for the majority of districts, I want to say 96% to 98%, we go through either the Regional Information Center, or if there are any still left, Regional Computer Centers. And the district purchases the network equipment through them, and will also pay a maintenance fee for all of the devices that are in the wiring closets. This maintenance contract will fall under your BOCES COSERs, depending if there's if they're part of the management. They're usually on the management side. Again, maintenance contract on high-speed network printers and copiers. They're referred to now as high-speed network printers versus copiers because we are now connecting them to the networks. We are printing to them. We are saving our print documents to something called a queue, which is spelled Queue. That is my personal queue, so that if I have worksheets or a document that I'll print frequently and need high numbers, I will save that document to my queue, and at the time I need it, I will mark it for release, and that is when our operators in central duplicating can actually go in and say, oh, I see that Larry King has a document, it's due to be printed next, what does he need? Oh, this is, two-sided, 100-sheet, single staple, and they will simply, say print. And that time make the copies for me and have it done. But the maintenance contract on those, depending on manufacturer, depending on the local supplier, those contracts can be different. Some include click charges for a period of time, some include staples, some include toners, etc. And everyone is different, and hopefully your technology people know what's included in each one, and that is built into the budget for next year and the years to come. Here again, we're looking at who holds a contract for computer hardware. I mentioned in the very beginning that back in the 80s, it was pretty simple. We would purchase it from our local IBM rep or our local Apple rep or our Commodore person, and we would have them, and they were the ones that we would call at the time of need. Now, what we're looking at is BOCES, or Regional Information Center, the OEM or vendor. Did I purchase this high-speed network printer using direct funds? Did I perhaps utilize my state aid? And in that, if I went with my local monies, who's actually holding the contract, and how do I maintain that contract? And then again, there's the third party. We actually, in this region, have a third party who comes in and will repair. We have a contract with that person, and we use something called coupons. Oh, okay. Donna's saying that if you have any questions, please type them in, shoot them out. If it's on something that I've discussed previously, I'm certainly open to respond to or answer any questions you may have. And you have, does everyone have access to the chat room? That is something that maybe is a good time now, since Donna set that out. Could everyone just type something into that chat area? You would address it to the all down lower right hand. There we go. Hi, Rich. Just so we know you're there and you've got it. Because if you, okay. Okay, how are maintenance requests submitted? Again, this goes back to the previous slide where we talked about inventories. How are your maintenance requests submitted? Do you do it by paper, where somebody has to fill out a work request, submit it to the principal has to sign it, then it goes over to your Director of Buildings and Grounds, and that person has to sign it, and then that's handed to someone in maintenance, and they go and put up the new whiteboard or fix the toilet? Do you do it by email? Do you send there's one district in the region that uses an email account of IVA problem and at whatever, and the other one is IVA request at, and those are sent to people, and the requests are made that way. Or do you actually have an online work repair request system? Um, my preference and what I've become accustomed to over the past 10 years is actually having an online work repair request system. Currently in our district, we have two. We have one for our maintenance, and we have one for our computer. Computer and AV are together system. And what that gives us is that gives us data, and that I can see what I still have open. I can see who's worked on it. Have you placed interactive whiteboards? Ah, that's a very good question. Okay, let me finish this, Rich, and I'll respond to that. Online work repair request system. In that, too, we can create the database. We can find out what devices have been worked on the most. We can actually do a scan and say, what have we spent the most time on? And in that, that helps us anticipate what devices are going to be replaced and recycled. And we can also find out if it's a training issue that we need to spend more time in a certain area doing training. If all of the requests are the same, that the printout isn't coming out correctly, well, it's not the printer, it's not the hardware, it's more of a training issue. All right. Okay. I will answer Rich's question. Have you placed interactive whiteboards in most of your classrooms? How do you determine what to roll out in such large quantities? Okay. Again, I go back. My philosophy is always you base it upon program, and you base it on the curriculum. You base it on the needs of the areas. I know that a lot of districts are taking advantage of capital project money to say, now's the time I have some money. Where could I improve my technology and get the biggest bang for my buck? And so there are districts across the state that are doing hundreds at a time, putting hundreds of interactive whiteboards, be they Prometheans or smart boards or any other version of that. They are actually installing them district-wide. My personal preference is not to do that. I can understand the logic behind, I have the money now, people are asking for it, it's important that we do it, let's get them. With those, a very wise man years and years ago told me as we were installing technology, he said what you do is you purchase the technology and then you train and you train and you train. If you want your staff to use it, you better train them and you better provide the support. So all that being said, in my district, the way we are doing it is there's a list. We are slowly implementing smart boards. That's the choice that we had made after investigating the pluses and the minuses. As a matter of fact, as we looked at the smart boards, there's multiple styles to get, and I will tell you it was discussed at three levels. The discussion for the smart boards was made initially in the technology committee. It was secondarily made at the administrative level, and thirdly with the Board of Education. Before we installed our first interactive whiteboards, our smart boards, I met in public session 4 times with the Board of Education. It is a new, unknown technology to the majority of our constituents, and so there was a lot of apprehension associated with that. Some people, we have a couple school districts in the region where indeed they did install all of the smart boards, and the perception from some of our Board of Education members is that where that was done, not all of them were being used, and they were walking by classrooms where these things, which cost thousands of dollars, were sitting dark. That isn't what we wanted to do. So there is a list, and I am working my way down the list. The teachers are not happy with me if they don't get them sooner, but I remind them that there is a list. They are on the list. We are working through the list. It also goes back to my own personality is I am not one to say, oh, who would like a interactive whiteboard? My um, my personality is more, if they ask for one, then I know that they've seen it, that they're interested, and they will use it. Because if you ask somebody if they want something, they're going to say yes. Um, you will have the few that say, no, really, I really don't want something like that in there because I'll never use it, or I'm really afraid of it, I don't want it. The majority will say yes, and you will put it up, and they may use it a little bit. Those who want it will ask for it, and that is what has happened here. We had a grassroots group that was minimal. It was minimal. It was about half a dozen people. We made sure that we also put them in our computer labs, which we have in our elementary, middle, and high school. We made sure that we also put them in our computer literacy classroom and our business applications classroom. Those teachers were going to be using them all day, and they're very glad they have them, and they are using them. The rest were, if they had asked, I started at the top of the list. The first person who asked was the first person who got one, and we've then done that way. It's worked out well because the people who are getting them are lighting the fire, and more people are becoming excited, and now they also want to do the same. Go back to the buy the hardware, then you train, train, train. We have taken advantage of our common set of learning objectives, COSER through BOCES, in which we can get ITP, which is Instructional Technology Planning, person into our district, and that we've actually utilized two different people, and they are definitely helping our teachers in with the staff development has made it successful. Rich, did that kind of cover it, or was that more than you needed to know? Okay. Yeah, it was pretty long. Sorry. I can talk a lot. Okay. The next slide, we talk about license management. We technology people, we worry about our online databases. That has become a major expense for us, but hopefully well-founded. It is, again, based on surveys, which is, again, that's another online database, is a survey. I don't know if your district uses one, but we have used survey software to go out and have our staff post information. But the online databases mostly fall under library management. And there are now some that we're starting to use teacher-specific, so they actually come out of our curriculum office. But again, as we're doing long-range planning, I see that online databases are going to be something that is utilized more, because most software, most databases, as you know, I mean, kids think they can Google it or Wikipedia it. Well, we prefer that we'd actually focus their attention and maybe direct their research to things such as World Book and Compton's and those types of things. The office applications, obviously, for license management. I can't stress it more, but make sure you're in compliance. If you have 500 computers in your middle high school and they're all supposed to be running Office and they all have Office installed, you got to make sure you have 500 licenses to align with that. Unfortunately, sometimes it's just as easy to install it and then get the license afterwards. It's really, really important that that's maintained. Talk about the food services, point of sale. That's just another area. Your web hosting. Everybody has a website. How are you doing it? Are you doing your web hosting locally, which some people do, but in that you still usually have a license management for the software that you're using to host it or run on the server, or if you have guys that are good enough, they're getting the freeware stuff and putting it up, and God bless you for that. Okay. We can spend a lot of time talking about which one. Oh, about the other one. Okay, got it, Rich. Okay. About the Office applications, is that what you're referring to? And making sure that we have licenses? Yeah. Okay. Web hosting. That we've covered student information systems. Everybody has a student information system. How much does it cost you, and how much is it going to cost you in the future? Rich is chairing a committee on web hosting. Oh, very interesting. Okay. There are many solutions for web hosting, and depending on who you have on staff, There's lots of creativity that you have with it. I will tell you that there's a buzzword that you'll hear a lot now. It's called Moodle, Moodle. That's not for hosting per se, but it's actually for doing coursework. Your teachers, if they're actually setting up online courses or going to do an online information areas for your students, there'll be something called Moodle, Moodle, and it's worth a shot if you're interested to go out and take a look at that. And then we have our business office applications. We've got the license manage on that, but I know you guys are always really good about that stuff. Oh no, we'll skip this one because that's a duplicate slide. No, that's a Larry King mistake. All right, do all the licenses renew at the same time of year? Oh my goodness. If you can, in your district, help your technology director, your technology coordinator, your technology people, and see if they can't indeed work with you to get everything occurring at the same time. Um, uh, when I came to this district a couple of years ago, I had all my all my licenses renewing at a different time, and that was it, a lot of work. So what we did is we worked hard over 2 years to um, actually sign like 16-month contracts or 14-month contracts, so that all of them renewed during the summer at the beginning of the fiscal year. From that, do you know from the business perspective from your district, is that pretty much what you're doing now, or do you find that your accounts payable people are throughout the year paying for licenses at different times? And one of the things also that we're looking at, can the licenses be purchased as part of the BOCES COSER? All right, long-range planning, integrations of systems, PCs or Apples. Um, this is again, it is based on instructional needs, curricular needs, or application and administrative needs. Uh, they from the technology perspective, they're all the same. Um, they plug in, they plug into the network, they do email, they do web browsing, and they will run applications. They take electricity, and they take some maintenance. They all print to a laser printer that's connected to the network, and if I covered it with a bag and just gave you a keyboard, you wouldn't know which device you were on, but you'd be able to get there. So from our perspective, the technology perspective, I'm saying that if it's a PC or an Apple, it shouldn't matter. What should matter is what's going on in the classroom, what's going on in the office. We currently, in my district, are primarily Apple, and that's just a historical thing. I will also say, though, that this morning I was at a conference at our BOCES where we were looking at health office applications. Both of the applications that we saw and our nurses liked were based on a PC. I have no issue with taking out the Macintosh that's in their offices and putting a PC to make it easier for them and make the application work for them. Yes, for those of you who are a little bit technology savvy, there is something called VMware or virtual machineware. And on the Macintosh, the one that I find works, well, there's actually two. The one I like best is called Fusion. It's manufactured by a company called EMC. So I can put Fusion on a Macintosh, and I can run that window, and inside that window I can run my Windows. I can also run Windows directly on my newer Macintosh as long as it has an Intel processor. I can't run, say that quickly, I can run Apple software on a PC with an Intel processor. I can actually load the Apple software on there and run that operating system. The cost from business perspective, the Apples will cost a little bit more money, but if you look at the TCO, because of the lack of viruses and the lack of spyware, that they are subjected to, the apples require less technology staff, fewer technology persons, and less time on task fighting those things. If you are a PC Windows house, your technology people are ensuring that the second Tuesday or thereabouts of every month, they're running the security updates, and also ensuring that they have virus software. And we usually use a central database for that. So like I said in the beginning, where we push out stuff, that's being pushed out, the updates for the virus software as well as with the spyware. Everybody, quite honestly, in my district, we use on our Windows machines, we use one virus software and we use two spyware software, because one spyware does okay on some spyware that you might get, another does okay on the other. But when you get your PCs and Apples, most, as it says here, most software will work on either. New Apples can run the Windows operating system, and most school technical support personnel know both. I will say most. There are some that prefer to drive the Chevy versus the Ford, but they're so similar now and everything that they usually know both. The primary under integration systems that the technology people focus on and we have to look at are the online applications. Firefox is a popular browser, and when you install it, will the application run? Now, Rich, you're saying you're looking at web hosting. When you're web hosting, whatever they're using for their engine, the engine that will run that website, you have to test it and make sure that as you create the pages, that it will not only run in the newer browsers, but will also run in older versions. The kiddos and the parents, as they go home, you can't always guarantee that they are going to have access to the newest of computers and the newest browsers and the fastest stuff. There are still kids out there using Windows ME, Millennium Edition, and they might have Internet Explorer 5 on their computer, and probably 512 megs of RAM, which isn't a lot to run some of the newer applications that we ask them to run. So that's important to as you're looking at integration of systems. As you look and you start to say, oh, on my student information system, I'm going to do a parent portal, or we ran into an instance with our food services software that we do have a parent portal for that, where parents can log in and actually look and see what the students have purchased and how much they have on their balance. And actually there's a connection to PayPal where you can actually go over and put some money onto their account. The difficulty with that application, it only runs on certain web browsers, and that has to be a disclaimer that's sent out to parents at the time you say, hey, you know what, you can log in, but not if you're using Internet Explorer 5 and not if you're on a Macintosh. Okay. Yes, we are hosted by School World. The decision-making process, okay. Can apples run financial software? Let me answer that. WinCap, yes. Mary Gibson, the answer is yes. WinCap is from CCA in Albany. That actually utilizes a product called Citrix, Citrix. And with Citrix, it is actually it is terminal session. It's Windows terminal session, kind of on steroids. Windows terminal session. I'll explain the behind that. With Windows terminal session, I can be on a PC. I'm accessing an application, but that application is really running on another computer somewhere else in the district. WinCap does that. You have your WinCap server. So when you log on with your Citrix, what you're getting is a screen, and that screen that you see is actually being provided off the WinCap server. So it is not, even though you're looking at it, your computer, your hard drive, your processor is running minimally. The most of the stuff that's running on your computer at the time that you're connected to WinCap is actually the network connection that you have. Citrix is very stable and it runs just fine. And once you're in the application, if you give the person who is on the Apple computer, if you give them a 2-button mouse, they have the same functionality as the person on the Windows machine. And again, it goes back to it doesn't matter which computer you're on. If you have the keyboard and the mouse, it looks exactly the same. If you are using WinCap, though, you're going to want to look at if you do some work from outside the district. If you want to be home and access WinCap, then you have to use something called a VPN. It's a virtual private network. Depending on who manufactures your networking equipment or what VPN, the virtual private network, you will go through, you may have more difficulty on an Apple than you will on the Windows. The VPN clients are usually free, and if they aren't free, they're a nominal cost. You download them on your computer, you connect to the VPN with a login, and then essentially you're doing you're coming in the back door of your network. You're coming in a private, protected, firewalled location so that you can work on your WinCap that way. With the Apples, it's not as easy. It actually uses a product, well, for WinCap, I know it uses a product called Apani, A-P-A-N-I. It's a little over $100 per client, and it's not as neat and clean as it would be on the PC. Rich Cunningham, he was looking at our website, hosted by Schoolworld. Correct. What was the decision-making process behind that? Rich, I have to apologize. I was not here when the decision was made, so I don't know. I know in previous years this district had hosted it locally, and they had used a WebStar product on their server, and I know that only because the software boxes are still on the shelf. So I can't tell you what the process was behind purchasing that. I know that most of them are similar. You've got the Schoolworld product. You've got the Winnie Rick here uses something called School Wires or Webs that Work. They both work well. There are also other industrial type web hosting areas. I think immediately of like a GoDaddy. The disadvantage with going to something like that is it becomes totally out of your control. It's not expensive. But then you are using a product like Dreamweaver or a BB Edit or something, depending on the sophistication of whoever's creating the website, to do that. The advantage of, I'm back still answering Rich's question, of using a Schoolworld or School Wires or somebody like that, their engine that they're running, Schoolworld in particular, is using something called Cold Fusion. So that when you actually go to a web page, you don't see an HTML or an HTML, you actually see a CFM. Well, that's a cold fusion meta language that they're using there. So what that enables the teacher or someone who is not educated in web page development, that enables them to just go in and type in a paragraph and say, bold this, highlight this, put this link, upload my pictures. It's very simple. It's click and type, and they're done, and they have a web page that works. The disadvantage is they don't have the flexibility of making that unique and maybe changing some of the layouts or maybe not being happy with the templates that are offered by default. So if you're asking that. Actually, Rich, you know what? I'll do some more research on that, and we can talk about it next time too, as far as what the products are available and as we look at those types of online things. Under integration of systems, actually, I've only got about 10 more minutes before we cut into a Q&A. Again, dependency on web browsers as the means for permitting access to the system. It adds a complexity of ensuring that the website works with all levels of browsers. I mentioned this earlier, that we had the issue with our lunch management service, that we couldn't do what we were told we could do. So I've got that little bullet in there on who do you trust for this answer. Please, when making a decision on a purchase, defer to your technology people and I would have make reiterate that, depend on your technology people, and make sure that they were able to do what the vendor said they could do. And just like Rich in your school world or your school wires or your website works, whatever you know choose to do as your website, make sure that it really has the flexibility built in that they said it will do, and test it on older systems. If you don't have older computers in your district that have an old version, your tech people certainly have the means by which and will have the knowledge to know how to install the older versions of a browser on a computer somewhere, or maybe know a friend or a grandmother or an uncle or an aunt who can actually try to log on to the website you tell them and see what it looks like. I had an instance recently with a website where I had to go in and click on some bullets, and the bullets were all over the page and didn't align with the lines that so I didn't know what I was clicking on at the time I was clicking on. So those are the types of things that you really want to look into before you start telling parents that they can come and visit. More sophisticated systems will work on most systems, like the school world and the school wires. Those types of things will work. Lunch management system, if you paid, if you bought the less expensive version based on the bid, it may not have been an apples for apples purchase that you made. It kind of did it, but okay. Oh gosh. Okay, you want to finish the PowerPoint since you have answered some questions during your presentation? We can. Oh, good. Okay. All right. 3:15. I'll hold off all questions. Okay. The other button, the bullet that's down at the bottom. Can I launch the application on my BlackBerry or iPhone? That is huge because that's where we're going. That's where we're going with the technology. The students are walking into the school district carrying their PDAs. They're carrying their BlackBerries, better phones than I have. They're carrying their iPhones, and you know what? That's what they're doing when they walk out of the doors. They walk in the doors. We tell them not to do it anymore. We will get there before I retire. That not only students but teachers will be able to access any information that we should throw up on the web via their PDA, BlackBerry, iPhone, whatever they have. Okay. Okay. The technology and software is available. If you want it done, there's a way to do it, and I live by that. If you want it done, your technology committee, your technology staff can do it. There is a way. 15 years ago, I worked for a wonderful gentleman. His name was Peter Digert, and this was at a BOCES, and he would go out and tell districts that we could do stuff, and we would all sit there and go, Pete, how could you tell them that? We can't do that. So we spent a lot of time figuring out how to do it. Now it's not so hard. There is a way to do it. There's always a way. So if there's something you want done, there's software that you need, there's integration of systems, there's always a way to do it. And I mentioned a couple of these before, your common tools, your VMware, virtual machines. This also allows you, if you're on a computer that says, oh, you know what, you need to run Windows 95, I can put a virtual machine on an XP workstation that runs a virtual machine, and I can run Windows 95 in that window. Okay, remote desktop, terminal sessions, I mentioned that. Citrix, PDF. Please, when you send an attachment, always try to make it a PDF, a portable document format, or for Adobe. Adobe actually, you can download a PDF writer that from whatever document, when you go to file print, you actually say print it as a PDF file, you save it, and you send it off to people. SIF, you'll hear this frequently talked about by technology type people and a school interoperability framework. What that all means is that software is now trying to meet those guidelines so that if I am in a student information system, that it talks nicely with my business application, so that if I make a change, and this all happens in the background, if I make a change in, let's go back to WinCap, because that was if I make a change in WinCap on a staff member's address or a phone number, it should automatically, using School Interoperability Framework, transfer into my Power School so that under my staff tag, that phone number and address is automatically there. This lessens the times when I made a change in WinCap, I didn't make a change in my eSchool data, and I go into eSchool data and I call the person's old phone number and get their ex-husband, and he's irate because his wife has moved and has a new phone number. Okay, networking, understanding TCP/IP. Everything now is TCP/IP, and I'm running out of time here. I've only got 4 minutes. In the networking part, that was more of an issue in the past. Again, if you need to make it work, it works. Everything is based on TCP/IP, even telephones now. The IP telephones are still in a growing state, so if you are brave enough to move to TCP/IP, you will be encountering some growing pains, but there's also lots of cute little stuff that you can do with those. And you will also save some money in the long run. What is wireless? This will be where I'll finish up for today. Wi-Fi, cell modems, Bluetooth, they're all different. What we have in our school districts is the Wi-Fi. It is based on the 802.11, and there's multiple versions of that. There's 802.11a, b, and G. And depending on how old it is, it's going to have a higher letter. And actually, the higher the letter, the more compliant with the new devices it will be, and the further the range it will be. Wi-Fi is stuff that you get inside a building. You'll get it inside your house. You'll get it inside a school building. You will get it inside the JetBlue terminal at JFK. You will get it inside of Starbucks. Your cell modems, for those of you who do a lot of travel for work or even for not work, and you want to carry your laptop and be connected at all times, there are USB cell modems that you can attach to your computer, and depending on your provider and the coverage that they have, you can actually connect to the internet, get into your email, get into the web, and you're not dependent on the cell modems. The final is the Bluetooth. The Bluetooth is limited by range, but now we use that mostly for
I'm on a webinar. It ends at 3:30.
Okay. We're now kicking into the 3:15, which is the time for the Q&A.
Okay, Larry, if you want to continue with the PowerPoint, you can, because we do have time, and since there are no questions.
Are there any questions? Okay. The problem is I'm seeing on this one is this slideshow that unfortunately I gave you. It doesn't have the continuation of slides. I'm at the end of integration of systems instead of moving on to the next items.
Okay.
So I'm kind of at a stuck point, Donna, on that.
All right. Well, is there any other topic or anything else that you want to say about any of these, the TCP IPs or the Wi-Fi cell modems or the Bluetooth?
I could certainly talk about these, but okay, let's go back to understand the TCP IP. It is Transfer Control Protocol and Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. That came with the advent of the World Wide Web, and it used to be, as I said, there was that thing called ArcNet that we used to worry about, and that was very chatty and noisy. Apples will also use something called Apple Talk or Ether Talk. That, again, is very chatty and noisy. And the disadvantages of the earlier networking technologies was that as we added more computers, things got slower. Similar, and you always hear the thing about clouds or about highways. We would build a 3-lane road, and then we'd throw too many computers or too much traffic on that 3-lane road. So one of the pieces was to actually, this TCP/IP talks in very small packets, so you're putting a lot of small cars on the road instead of a lot of big cars, so that there's less collisions. As we talk about the networking, integrations of systems, you need to make sure everybody's Ethernet, which is a pretty moot point now. We actually used to have a lot of token ring in New York State because that was the standard by which the regional information centers went, and that was mostly because we were coming from mainframes, and IBM was a proponent, is not a benefactor of us using token ring. Token ring worked, and it worked very well. Ethernet was the more popular because it was less expensive. We put in Ethernet, we were running TCP/IP. Ethernet runs on something called collision detection, so that when your network gets slow, or you all of a sudden get the sand clock, the egg timer clock, or you get the spinning wheel and you're stuck, a lot of times that means there's just been a major collision on the network, and just hang on for a few minutes and the collision will clear itself and everyone will move on. And it works exactly like it would on a highway. I could talk more about the school interoperability framework, and that goes back to the interaction between the multiple systems. There are very few that are transparent in the way they are supposed to be. I will say that most of the ones that we use here, we still have to do a download and an upload. That manual part of doing a download from one application and then uploading into another is supposed to be what is taken care of by the school interoperability framework. And I can tell you it's been years in the process. And lots of time, and some of it is because it's proprietary issues. There are turf war issues. But I believe that now most vendors have found the advantage of, hey, what's the big deal if I share my information, because I'm going to get back from the other guy too. So, and the coding, it has something to do with it too.
Okay.
Okay. What other questions?
Right.
I know Rich has been really hot on the...
Okay, we do have a question that came in from Michelle.
Okay.
And she says, do you have a recommendation for a spam filter for email?
Okay. Michelle. We use a product called CANIT, CAN-IT. There's two primary items to concern yourself with at the time of purchasing a spam filter. One is, how fast does it work? People don't like to wait for email. People like to get the email 30 seconds after the person sent it. Now, that doesn't matter if I'm sending from California to New York or from New York to Alaska. I want it in 30 seconds or less. I expect that when the person says, I click send, that I get it. Some spam filters will take longer. So when I send it into you always look at the funnel. If I'm sending it into a funnel, is it a big funnel or a little funnel, and how fast will it get through? The second item that I want in a spam filter, beyond the speed, is I want it to be good. I want it to really cut the spam out, and I want to have the flexibility to say, oops, I made that too tight. I need to loosen the screw a little bit and let a little bit more email go through, because it bases itself on every spam filter uses a different algorithm to go in to decide, how they're going to filter information. Most of the time, it's based upon the sender address. They can look at it and say, okay, somebody do something called a web bot or something along that line where they've actually cheated and they've created this bogus email address and they're sending it over. It will also look at the header of the email and actually read through that and decide, okay, where did this come from? Did it take multiple hops to get here? Did it come from a real mail server? Was it using somebody else's mail server or mail address and really coming from a different location? I know that was a long answer. There are two items. One is, how fast does it work, and how flexible is it? The one that we use here is called CANIT, and I will tell you it is both. It is fast, and it is flexible, and it is easy to manage. We had an instance just this fall where we had loosened up a little bit on the filter. We changed the level of how much we were cutting out, and I started getting complaints from majority of users that they were getting a whole bunch of junk, and so I turned it down, and it was amazing. Within 45 minutes to an hour, everything was back to where we had been previously, and no complaints.
Well, that sounds like a good product then.
It works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps with this remaining time that we have, you want to go over the activities, which will be posted, if not shortly after we finish the webinar, certainly by tomorrow. And if you're not sure where you find the activities, for those of you who are involved with this online course, if you go to the New York State ASBO website, on the left side of the page, you scroll down and you will see Conference Room. And you click on Conference Room, and then you will see something that says Strategic Planning, and you click on that, and that's where the activities will be that you're required to do to complete the whole course. So, Larry, if you'll go through what those activities are.
Sure. There is a PDF document that should be attached to that, which actually contains a technology plan checklist. Okay, this checklist is what we technology coordinators and directors must submit with our technology plans for E-rate New York State approval. I would like for you to take this technology plan checklist, go through your home district's technology plan, and check it off to say, is this included? Wasn't it included? Was it correct? And once you do find that, go to the, see if it really was enough information or if it's pretty spotty. Most of the time it's going to be good, but I'd like you to check that. Then I would also like you to go to another New York State school district. If you want to go to mine and Rich, you want to grab my technology plan and go through it, you're more than welcome. And compare that with a checklist and see what you find. And both of them should contain everything. But I would just like you to take the time, and this will help you. You will read through at least 2 different versions of a technology plan, hopefully both instructionally, curricularly based, but also containing the information required for E-rate, NCLB, and title information. And that's the assignment for next time. If you have any questions that you wish me to answer in the next time, I'll certainly add them to that. I will also, in the next session, actually, we'll cover appropriate policies that are needed by the district. This goes over our acceptable use policies and our code of conduct. The school district's code of conduct should also include use of technology-type instruments. It might not be, it's not required, but it sure would be a good idea to get a hold of your acceptable use policy or your computer use policy or your code of conduct, wherever that is, where a staff member and or a student actually says, yes, I understand that school equipment and anything that is developed, created on this equipment is the property of the school district. That includes email, that includes worksheets, any of that information is school district. And that is rich, again, as we talk about school websites. Some of the teachers who may have a school website or a wiki or a blog that is on like a Blogger or on a Wikispaces type website, the district has no means by which to go in and recover that information, and or even in some sense say, ooh, that is inappropriate, we need to turn that off right now, which will happen sometimes with blogs if there isn't a moderator or if the moderator isn't checking at the time. But we can certainly talk about that in the next session. Also, we'll talk about disaster recovery, community access to school technology systems, emerging technologies, which is huge, and the cost-benefit analysis and management for instructional program software management, information software networks, and communication systems. Okay, are there any questions before we sign out?
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
Yes, the checklist will be up either, I'll post it either right after this webinar or by tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And go ahead.
My email address is lking@clevehill.org if you have a question or a couple of questions, or if there's something you want me to include in the next session. You want me to add to something, or there's something in particular. There's only a few of us, so it'd be real easy to do that.
Okay, and thank you very much for sharing all of your expertise. Thank you for your questions. And I certainly hope all of you have found this to be helpful. There will be a survey to complete at the end of the webinar. And thank you very much for attending.
Yes, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's New York State ASBO webinar. Thank you all for attending, and have a great day.